Certainly, here's a rephrased version of your text retaining its tone, wit, and vivid detail, while removing all timestamps and streamlining the narrative into a cohesive, immersive piece. You've woken up in 1956. The linoleum gleams, your pearls are on, your coffee is lukewarm, and somewhere in the background, the radio murmurs about Eisenhower and the virtues of canned pineapple. But you don't have time for nostalgia. You have gloves to choose. Not just any gloves. The gloves, there's a pair for church. White wrist length, with pearl buttons that seem to mock your dexterity. A pair for shopping. Beige, practical, but not so sturdy, you look like you're about to rob the butcher. A cotton dusting glove, never bare hands. Darling. That's how civilization unravels. Driving gloves. Buttery and perforated, because a red palm is a social indictment. And yes, even gardening gloves, technically not for public wear. But you must own them, just in case someone asks about your roses and you need to prove you've never touched dirt. Forget one, and you've committed a sin. Wear the wrong one, and you've declared war on suburbia. The bed must be made, not just made, but constructed. Hospital corners, so sharp they could bounce a nickel. Pillowcases, iron shams, stacked like a museum exhibit. The quilt smoothed to a sheen that says, "No child, husband." For feline has dared disturb this altar since 1947. If it's wrinkled by 8 a.m., you'll remake it before lunch. Because, in this world, your reputation doesn't live in your words. It lives in your linen. Breakfast is a symphony of precision. Toast is buttered with a monogrammed knife. Never the dinner fork. Bacon is curled, never lascivious. Coffee is poured for others first. The pot rotated so the handle faces the guest, not you. Orange juice in the squat glass. Grapefruit in its own porcelain cradle, with a serrated spoon that gets polished more than it gets used. Cereal, only if the children have won you over. And never ever let the cereal box touch the table. At 5:15 p.m., the garage door rattles. You've changed into a day dress, applied lipstick with trembling hope, and slipped into house heels, shoes worn only for standing in the foyer, pretending you haven't spent the day wrestling a vacuum and fishing a toy car out of the toilet. You greet him with the exact tone of someone who has not screamed into a pillow since breakfast. His slippers are waiting, his newspaper folded, his coat taken with quiet grace. You do not mention the washing machine's death rattle. You do not mention the cat's latest crime. You smile at 78% intensity. You are the calm in the storm, the perfect wife, the flawless hostess. By 9:45 a.m. the next day, the ladies arrive. The china is flawless. The sugar bowl is chilled. The cookies, if store-bought, are nestled in a tin, gently mashed to look homemade. A single misstep. Is this your own recipe? And your social standing trembles. Conversation is a minefield wrapped in floral perfume. The weather, the children's spelling bees, the price of beef. Never the truth, never the exhaustion, never the urge to flee to Cuba. Coffee is poured with reverence. Decaf is whispered about like a moral failing. Instant coffee, a declaration of surrender. If you serve it, you might as well hand them your resignation from womanhood. And then there's Tupperware. It's not a party, it's a trial. The living room is a kaleidoscope of avocado, blush pink, and that impossible orange no natural world ever produced. Your hostess, radiant and terrified, demonstrates the airtight seal like it's a miracle from God. You sip punch from a Tupperware cup, you nod, you laugh. You resist the urge to ask why. It still smells faintly of last week's chili. You don't buy enough, and you're a traitor to progress. You buy too much, and your husband starts eyeing the garage like it's a raccoon sanctuary. By 11:30, the gloves are back on, the handbags reclaimed. Promises to do this again are issued with the solemnity of a peace treaty. And when the last car turns the corner, you exhale. You survived another week, not because you were strong, but because you knew the rules. And in a world where mismatched gloves could exile you, and a wrinkled bed could summon judgment from the afterlife, you wore the right ones, you made the right corners, you served the right coffee, and you never, ever Let them see you sweat. Welcome to 1956, where the greatest threats weren't bears or bandits. They were the quiet, relentless expectation to be perfect. And you were perfect until you weren't. And then you did it all again tomorrow. You've waltzed right into one of history's strangest masquerade balls. The life of a 1950s housewife, where the greatest threats aren't bears, bandits, or the Black Death, but mismatched salad forks and the horrifying possibility that you forgot to iron the bedsheets. This isn't just about etiquette, a full contact sport, drop your white gloves, and the penalty could be social exile, mild marital disappointment, or the spontaneous combustion of your neighbor's respect. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what you see here. Leave a comment, letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Switch on a fan for gentle, non-judgmental white noise. Get comfortable. Maybe surround yourself with a few decorative throw pillows, something in pastel, preferably to channel that authentic 1950s energy. Have you ever wondered what it truly felt like to live as a post-war housewife? How many pairs of gloves did you need just to make toast? Was there an etiquette manual for eating Jell-O with embedded fruit? What happened if your skirt hem was half an inch off? Would you be excommunicated for serving canned soup at a dinner party? Was that actually a sign of modern sophistication? Could you survive a Tupperware party without fainting from polite excitement? Would you rather face a medieval bear than explain to your mother-in-law why your curtains clash with the tablecloth? Now, congratulations. You've just woken up in a split-level home, somewhere in the heart of suburbia. The linoleum gleams. Your pearls are on. Your coffee is probably laced with just a touch of existential dread. Good luck. Before breakfast, you're already facing a textile crisis. Which gloves, for which occasion? There's a glove for church, a glove for shopping, even a glove for dusting the piano. And if you're feeling daring, a scandalously short pair for cocktail hour. Each one says less about warmth and more about silently declaring, I know the rules and I can spot a faux pas at 20 paces. Forgetting your gloves is like showing up to work without pants. Only this time, the entire neighborhood might notice. Let's set the scene. The sun filters through sheer kitchen curtains. Somewhere, a radio murmurs about Eisenhower and the virtues of canned pineapple. But none of that matters. Today is Sunday church day. That means the white kid gloves, wrist length, with tiny pearl buttons that seem designed to betray you. You slide them on, trying to look serene while internally battling a piece of elastic that would rather snap than submit. Or maybe it's Tuesday, grocery shopping day. Suddenly, the white gloves are all wrong. You reach for pale, beige practical, but not too practical, too sturdy, and you'll look like you're robbing the butcher. Too delicate, and you'll be the talk of the produce aisle. Bonus points if you coordinate your gloves with your handbag shoes. And overall aura of I haven't cried in the pantry this week. Thank you very much. And then there's the dusting glove. Yes, it's a thing. In the 1950s, housework isn't just cleaning, it's performance art, done with dignity, flair, and the faint scent of lemon pledge. The proper dusting glove is cotton. Slightly worn but still pristine enough that you wouldn't die of shame if the mailman caught a glimpse through the window. Pro tip: never dust with bare hands. That's a gateway to chaos, a sign you've given up on civilization and possibly on yourself. Driving gloves, not just for men speeding down the highway in a women run errands with the same elegance. Buttersoft, often perforated for breathability because nothing says grace like ventilated knuckles. These protect your delicate hands from the steering wheel, which in summer doubles as a stovetop. Forget them, and you arrive at the post office with lobster red palms and a reputation as someone who just doesn't try hard enough. Then come the party, gloves slightly shorter, possibly in pastel. They say fun, but not too fun. Wear them before 5, and elders raise their eyebrows. After 8, you're sending a message, possibly that you read a magazine from Paris, which is thrilling and mildly suspicious, Gardening gloves exist in name only. Technically gloves, but in the same way a bath towel is formal wear. No one expects you to wear them publicly, but you must own a pair just in case someone asks about your roses, and you need to prove you've never touched actual dirt. And finally, the emergency glove, nondescript backup kept in your handbag at all times. A true 1950s housewife produces it like a magician pulling a rabbit, quickly, seamlessly, with no sign of panic. Every glove is more than fabric. It's a silent social handshake. Choose wrong, and you risk exile. Choose right, and you glide through your day with the effortless grace of someone who knows exactly how many spoons to lay for afternoon tea. Lose them, and you might as well have invited chaos to dinner. And if you accidentally wear mismatched gloves to the grocery store, keep your head high, smile serenely. Pray no one brings it up at bridge club. Or better yet, start a trend. Claim it's French. Either way, you've survived another day in the Suburbia Etiquette Olympics by the skin of your perfectly gloved hands. Now, let's talk about the bed. In the 1950s, making the bed isn't just straightening sheets. It's achieving hospital corner tightness so crisp it could bounce a nickel or a small child into orbit. God forbid the quilt wrinkles after 8 a.m. You'll remake it before your husband gets home, just in case he's accompanied by surprise clergy or the ladies' auxiliary. The stakes, domestic dignity, and maybe a backache that will haunt you for decades. You rise before dawn, eyeing the bed like a general preparing for battle. In this era, the bed is not furniture. It's an altar. Upon it, your reputation as a housewife is either sanctified or sacrificed. Sheets must be as crisp as your public smile. The quilt, so smooth, it reflects sunlight like a mirror, saying, no child or husband has touched this since 1947. First, strip the sheets with surgical precision. No crumpled corners, no lingering wrinkles. Mismatched pillowcases. Congratulations, you've just invited neighborhood Scandalland, possibly opened a portal where Martha Stewart serves as your parole officer. Next comes the Aruna weapon of domestic warfare. In a time before wrinkle-free fabric, every pillowcase and top sheet must be ironed into submission. Steam rises like incense. The scent of starch mingles with barely suppressed frustration. Hospital corners follow. For the uninitiated, these are folds so sharp and symmetrical they'd make an origami master weep. Tuck, smooth, repeat. If you're feeling bold, you'll even iron the blanket directly on the bed. For that extra edge, people iron their sheets, not because they want to, but because they fear what happens if they don't. Pillows. Never just one. Plump them, stack them, arrange them, according to a secret code passed down from grandmother to grandmother. Shams in back, decorative pillows in front, and one oddly shaped accent pillow that serves no purpose except to remind you who's really in charge. The result, a bed that looks less like a place to sleep and more like a department store display you're not allowed to touch. You step back, breathe in that rare moment of quiet pride, but don't get comfortable. Within hours, a child will crash through, dragging a sticky toy. The cat may launch a full-scale invasion. Your husband might rest his eyes in a way that turns the sheets into interpretive sculpture. By mid-afternoon, you're back at it bed-making round 2, because in the 1950s, you're only as respected as your bed is smooth. If your husband walks in and the bed looks slept in, it's an open invitation for him to ask, rough day. For worse, for your mother-in-law to conduct a surprise linen inspection. And yes, that's a real thing. Compare this to today, where making the bed is optional, a burst of productivity or optimism. Back then, skipping it meant social chaos. Imagine the anxiety of missing a work deadline, but the deadline is daily. And the boss is every neighbor with a window facing your driveway. So you smooth, tuck, fluff, and repeat twice a day. A ritual equal parts discipline, performance art, and subtle cry for help. And when you finally collapse into bed at night, careful not to disturb your masterpiece. You might dream of a world where beds make themselves, and pillow shams are just a myth. Until then, sleep tight. May your corners always be hospital sharp. You thought breakfast was casual. Think again. In the 1950s, the first meal of the day is choreographed, like Swan Lake. Toast buttered with the correct knife, bacon arranged in an inviting but not lascivious, coffee poured with the silent grace of a trained ninja. Serve orange juice in the wrong glass, and the neighbors whisper, "You weren't raised right." The table is set the night before. Tablecloth, smooth as a billiard table. Napkins, crisply folded. Plates aligned. Silverware polished so brightly, you can see the stress in your own reflection. Order of operations is crucial. Never set out the butter before the toast is ready. That invites social chaos and, possibly, the wrath of your mother's ghost. Toast is serious business. White bread, gently browned, transferred immediately to a rack to prevent sogginess. Soggy toast, that's the mark of the careless. Your reputation and, possibly your place in the family depends on keeping it crisp. Butter must be served in a cold ceramic dish, never left in its wrapper like some commoner's margarine. To hard you wait, you never scrape. Scraping butter is how you end up alone with a bad haircut. Bacon is not flung onto the plate. It's arranged, curled. Yes, but not too curled. That sends a message you don't want to send at 7:30 in the morning. Eggs. Scrambled should be fluffy, but not runny. Fried eggs demand a perfectly centered yolk. Poached, only, if you're ready to explain yourself to the local women's club. Cereal. If you must serve it, perhaps the children wore you down. Pour it into a bowl with steady hands. Follow with cold milk from a glass pitcher. Cereal boxes never go on the table, unless you want to be mistaken for someone who lets their dog on the furniture. Juice has its own rules. Orange juice in a short, squat glass. Tomato juice in a tall, elegant one. Grapefruit gets its own segmented dish with a dainty serrated spoon, used for no other purpose. It's possible more time is spent polishing that spoon each year than eating grapefruit. But that's beside the point. Finally, coffee. This is the real ceremony. Poured for others. First, not yourself. Sugar and cream offered, never assumed. The pot rotated so the handle faces the guest. A small act that separates the merely polite from the truly genteel. All of this unfolds with quiet urgency. Children must be dressed. Husband must leave, believing he's the luckiest man alive. And you must face the day knowing you survived another. Breakfast without shattering the fragile piece of suburbia. So next time you grab a breakfast bar on your way out the door, remember, you're a rebel, a pioneer, a maverick in yoga pants. And as for the toast, it will never judge you, unlike the ladies. Auxiliary, you haven't really lived until you've prepared to welcome your spouse. Home like a minor royal dot. The house is spotless. The children are sanitized. You're expected to look fresh as a daisy. Even if you've spent the day wrestling a Hoover, smile at precisely 78% intensity. Straighten his tie. Never mention the broken washing machine, nor the fact that you only have one eyebrow after a failed beauty experiment. The living room is free of rogue toys and unsanctioned dust bunnies. The smell of pot roast drifts through the air. The children, previously wild and sticky, are now arranged on the sofa by height, looking either angelic or deeply traumatized by having their hair forcibly parted. You've changed out of your housework robe and into a day dress with a perky collar. If you're feeling daring, a little fresh lipstick, applied with trembling hope in the final minutes before the garage door rattles. In the 1950s, your husband's arrival isn't a reunion, it's an audition. Etiquette manuals outline your greeting. Brush your hair, tidy your makeup. Greet him with a soft voice and gentle smile. Feeling ambitious, slip into house heel shoes, worn exclusively for standing in the living room, while pretending you haven't been on your feet all day. It's not just a welcome, it's a performance. And the judges are everyone you know, living and dead. The screen door squeaks. Keys jingle like an ominous bell. You gather the children, shushing last-minute confessions about broken lamps or hidden frogs. Position yourself in the foyer. Smile, locked and loaded. The door opens. You deliver your lines, "Welcome home, dear," with the precise tone of someone who absolutely did not just scream at a vacuum or fish a toy car out of the toilet. He steps in, you take his coat, make small talk about his day, never yours. Unless you're prepared to explain pie crust. Shrinkage to a man who thinks laundry folds itself. Resist mentioning the washing machine's dying walrus sound, or that the cat ate part of the curtains. The performance is seamless. His slippers wait. His newspaper is neatly folded. You stand. There, the embodiment of calm domestic competence. What's not discussed? Your own day. Scrubbing mystery substances off linoleum. Negotiating ceasefires between warring children. Discovering the dog acquired a taste for freshly washed socks. Etiquette demands restraint. Save the existential dread for after dinner. Ideally shared with a trusted friend and a stiff drink in the privacy of the backyard. The children chime in, "Welcome home, Daddy," in unison. If you bribed them with dessert, any deviation a wine, a frown swiftly redirected like a seasoned diplomat. The goal: present a harmonious, loving household, free of discord, dirty dishes, and honest emotional feedback. Compare this to today's average homecoming. Backpacks flying, someone shouting, "What's for dinner?" A dog barking, someone video calling from the kitchen. But in the 1950s, this is sacred, a dance where every step, smile, and word is practiced until second nature. When it's over, and he's settled with his slippers and paper, you exhale. You've survived another performance. And if your mascara is flaking, or you're fresh as a daisy, energy is fading fast. Remember, nobody can keep up the act forever. But in the 1950s, you had to try, at least, until after dessert. Now hosting coffee for the neighborhood ladies. Prepare for a minefield. Your cups must match. Cookies must be homemade or store-bought and cunningly disguised. And you must never mention anything that isn't simultaneously bland and slightly judgmental. Decaf is for the weak. Instant coffee for those who've given up on happiness. Long before the bell rings, you're already sweating. Hands tremble as you stack the good china. Any chip, crack, or suspicious fading is quickly hidden behind holiday mugs. You pretend you don't own. Each teaspoon is polished to a blinding shine. The sugar bowl is filled. The creamer is chilled. Coffee brewed to the exact strength your grandmother would approve, capable of dissolving both fatigue and minor household regrets. Snacks require covert ops. Serve store-bought cookies. Transfer them to a tin. Mash them gently to look homemade, plausible deniability. There's always one woman who'll nibble a biscuit and sweetly ask, "Is this your own recipe?" You must respond with vague enthusiasm. "Oh, it's just a little something I whipped up." Get caught with a branded box. Risk social banishment or worse. Being volunteered to organize next month's bridge night. The doorbell rings never early, never late, ladies. Enter in formation, cloaked in pastel optimism and floral perfume. Handbags, clutched with military precision. Gloves tucked away. Hats, if worn, placed carefully on the coat rack, ready to be reclaimed at the first hint of awkward silence. Greetings are Olympic-level understatement. "My, what a lovely home, you're too kind. It's just a little something we do. Is that a new rug?" I remember when I had the energy for redecorating. Conversation is a delicate ballet. Whether children's minor achievements, new casserole recipes, anything hinting at real emotion, marriage woes, existential dread, the urge to throw all the laundry into the yard and move to Cuba, must be buried under comments about rising grocery prices or next door's sad hydrangeas. Slip, and the silence will be so sharp it could cut linoleum. Coffee is poured with ceremonial gravity. Host serves others first. Sugar and cream offered, artificial sweeteners. Suspicious might cause cancer or communism. Decaf is regarded with polite suspicion. Instant coffee, a warning to enemies. As the morning progresses, compliments and criticisms swirl like cream in a cup. Someone remarks on your curtains, despite sun fading. Another sighs competitively over beef prices. Everyone agrees, Housewifery is exhausting, but no one suggests stopping by the time the last car disappears. You breathe a sigh of relief, survey the crumbs, contemplate moving somewhere without coffee. Mornings, you've survived another week. Just don't get caught with store-bought cookies in your trash, or you'll be the next cautionary tale. Now, Tupperware isn't just for leftovers. It's a loyalty test to progress and to Janet, the hostess. Buy too little, you're a traitor to modernity. Buy too much, your husband wonders why you need a container exclusively for hard-boiled eggs. The etiquette is as precise as nuclear disarmament. You must buy enough to appear supportive, but not so much your kitchen becomes a minor museum of plastic storage. The living room has been transformed into a battlefield of pastels of blush pink and an orange not found in nature. Your hostess beams, eyes gleaming with zeal, and Tereshes promised her upline 50 sets by Thursday. She's rehearsed every feature. The next hour feels less like a sales pitch, more like a tent revival for airtight seals. First, you're offered a drink sherbet punch, naturally, in a Tupperware cup. You accept, knowing the entire event is a test. Will you praise its durability, or commit the fatal error of asking why it smells faintly of last week's chili? Then comes the demonstration performance art. She pings the burp seal lid, releasing a satisfying pop, symbolizing freshness and progress. Lettuce is sealed, dropped. Retrievis still crisp. Gasps ripple through the room. Testimonials follow. I kept a pineapple slice fresh for 3 weeks. My casserole never dries out. It stacks so beautifully. My husband actually noticed. The praise rivals a royal wedding now. The real challenge, ordering. Buy too little, and you're marked as a laggard, rejecting progressive friendship. Buy too much, and you'll spend weeks explaining why you needed 6 citrus containers. Games break the tension. Tupperware, bingo. Mystery lid, guessing, fastest stacker. Icebreakers and reminders that the only thing between you and Tupperware-induced bliss is imagination and possibly your budget. Conversation blends competitive homemaking and friendly sabotage. Still using wax paper? Well, I suppose that's fine if you like stale cookies. You nod, praying no one asks about the chaos in your pantry, where one lid has been lost since Eisenhower took office. As the evening winds down, you're offered leftovers packed, of course, in Tupperware. To refuse is the ultimate insult. Then, the final hurdle. Leaving, you can't just bolt. You must linger. Compliment the host. Sign the order form with a flourish that says, "I am both modern and thrifty. Please, let me go home." You survive plastic in toll-ready, planning your own party to offload the 6-piece citrus set you bought in a panic. In 1950s suburbia, Tupperware parties aren't just social events. They're rites of passage, secret handshakes, the unbreakable seal on belonging. And then there's the skirt. Hem a half-inch too long, scandal too short. Moral fiber questioned until Labor Day. Local housewives measure with their eyes. Down to the millimeter, you start the day confident. Then, a glance in the mirror reveals disaster. Hemlines have crept upward overnight. What was chic is now matronly. Do you risk it or sprint for your emergency sewing kit, praying you can fix it before the school bus rounds the corner? Skirt length isn't fashion, it's survival. Mrs. Caldwell, across the street, spots an errant hem at 50 paces while watering roses. Unwritten rule, below the knee. No more, no less. Too long, you're hiding war rations. Too short. Whispers follow you. At PTA meetings, the grocery store, church steps, you're scanning other women's skirts, doing mental math, hoping you're in the safe zone. Remember last month's scandal? Helen's daughter wore a skirt 2 inches above the knee. For a week, it overshadowed the price of beef. Hems are traitors. Kneel to pick up a spoon. Suddenly, your skirt rides up, exposing knee capable of felling Mrs. Murphy. The sitting test is worse. The second you sit, it contracts. revealing thighs you didn't know you had. Defense perfect. The art of perching ankles crossed, ready to spring if someone approaches with a tape measure. Fashion magazines offer advice. Raise your hemline for youthfulness. They never warn about the neighbor with a sewing machine, who insists she can take it in a smidge, dear. Refuse, and you risk war. Accept, and each visit shortens it by half a centimeter. Some rebels cheat rolling the waistband, sneaking tape, but it ends in powder room humiliation. Best defense. Needle and thread in your purse. Eyes on the fashion barometer. Ball. All this for the privilege of walking down the street without incident. Modern life offers freedom unimaginable then. Wear pajama pants to the store. You might get a compliment, but in the 1950s, a skirt was a statement. A hem was the line between acceptance and exile. So when your grandmother has strong opinions about attire, remember, she fought in the battle of the hemlines, armed with a thimble, measuring tape, and nerves of steel. And she survived most days with her dignity and seams intact. No 1950s dinner party is complete without a dish encasing 3 incompatible food groups in lime gelatin. Etiquette demands you pretend to enjoy a tour. Avoid making a face that haunts your reputation for a decade. The doorbell rings, the table glows with mid-century optimism. And at its center, the shimmering, wobbly centerpiece, Jell-O salad. Somewhere inside, canned pineapple, shredded carrot, tiny marshmallows, floating in uneasy truce. If you stare long enough, you might see tuna suspended like prehistoric flies in amber. Serving Jell-O isn't hospitality. It's a rite of passage, an edible trial by fire. Hostesses aim for visual splendor. Citrus slices, evenly spaced, nothing sinks. Nothing floats except your dignity. Guests engage in the time-honored ritual of pretending not to be terrified. One spears a slice, eyeing it like it might leap off the plate. Another smiles through gritted teeth, determined to chew without blinking. Take the smallest slice, push it to the edge. Talk animatedly about school policies until everyone else finishes. Compliment the color. Such a lovely green, or the resilience. How does it hold its shape so well? Never ask about flavor. Some are escape artists, dropping Jell-O on the carpet, hiding forkfuls under napkins. Children are brutally honest. Recoil at first bite, but adults must soldier on, chewing bravely through gelatinous bites. Wondering who first looked at lime Jell-O and thought, this needs tuna. Imagine if every holiday required serving hot dogs, pudding, and K-land. Everyone just rolled with it. That's the 1950s Jell-O salad. Sometimes it's delicious strawberry with fruit cocktail, orange with mandarins. But danger lurks beneath the quiver. The boldest hostesses innovate. I call it tuna mold, they say, as guests quietly plan their wills. Survive it, and you've earned your place in polite society. Fail, and you'll be the cautionary tale at bridge club. So next time you see a suspiciously vibrant salad, channel your inner 1950s housewife. Neutral face, vague compliments. Napkin strategically placed, because in gelatin-based etiquette, survival isn't about liking the Jell-O. It's about pretending you did stand, living to tell the tale. Preferably at a dinner party with fewer surprises. Want to impress the neighbors? Don't send them home with food poisoning. From deviled eggs, left out all afternoon, to questionable casseroles left on porches every meal, is a balancing act between hospitality and biological warfare. If no one gets botulism, you've succeeded. The buffet groans under recipes from better homes and gardens. On the surface, perfection. Beneath a minefield of pathogens and mayonnaise, slow-cooked meats, refrigerated items left out too long. Food safety is a high-wire act. Rules are vague. Serve cold dishes, well chilled. But what does that mean? With an icebox older than your marriage. Deviled eggs develop a glossy sheen, best described as suspicious. You sniff them, hope for the best. If worried, serve them to the guest you like least. Casserole's pride of the kitchen and prime suspect in culinary crimes. Made in the afternoon, forgotten on the windowsill, served hours later. Golden topping, bubbling insides. It jiggles, panic. Potato salad, innocent looking, but a salmonella magnet. Made with copious mayo, left in the sun, rule of thumb. If it's warm, claim delicate digestion. Mystery, meat glazed, shiny, unidentified. You serve it with confidence and plausible deniability. Oh, it's an old family recipe. If asked what's in it, pivot to weather patterns, your arsenal. Saran wrap and the icebox. Saran wrap stretched over every bowl. The icebox hums heroically, slowing but not stopping, the inevitable at the end. You watch your guests. Is Mr. Jenkins sweating? Or is that just the scalloped potatoes? Hand out leftovers with a silent prayer. Just refrigerate this as soon as you get home. If they depart upright and smiling, free of food poisoning symptoms, you've hosted not just a meal, but a successful test of friendship and intestinal fortitude. In the 1950s, that's hospitality at its finest. And children, their etiquette rules are more complex than tax law. Never interrupt, never speak unless spoken to, never express a genuine opinion. Training them is your responsibility. Any lapse proves you're a communist. They sit, scrubbed to a shine, collars tight, expressions mildly terrified. Function, seen, not heard. Unless asked a direct question, then answer clearly, cheerfully. With humility suggesting no ambition beyond cleaning your room, utter an opinion. I don't like meatloaf. Silence falls. Air grows cold. You apologize like your child denounced capitalism on live radio. Discipline is relentless. Glances, eyebrow raises, the promise of dessert. The nuclear option. Wait till your father gets home. Yet children absorb everything. Later, they repeat it at playdates. Mommy says your jello is creative. A tantrum at the store. A loud burp during bridge club. You'll be the talk of the neighborhood. Compare this to today's irritating tiny, unpredictable diplomats who must maintain flawless manners, despite being chaos incarnate. Any misstep isn't just parenting failure, it's moral decay. Yet they learn, develop small talk talent, master napkin folding, offer vague compliments about rhubarb pie. Sure, they hide under beds or eat paste in art class. But mostly, they grow up just as anxious and socially attuned as you hoped. So next time you see a photo of perfectly behaved children, lined up like ducklings, remember, they're watching, judging, quietly plotting their next great etiquette escape. In the 1950s, manners are everything. And the smallest critic in the room is always your own child. Answering the phone, not communication. Performance art. Greeting must be crisp, tone cheerful. Never admit you're in the bath or, sitting down, wrong number. Apologize, like you caused the fall of civilization. The rotary phone sits on a tiny table. Heavy, solid, harvest wheat. Its ring cuts through the house like a starter pistol. You run, let it ring more than 3 times, and the household panics. Emergency church gossip. Milkman stuck in the driveway. By the time you answer, heart pounding, you've forgotten your name, but you can't show it. Good morning, Tisan. Residence. Ray speaking. Crisp, poised, like you've been alphabetizing recipe cards all day. Breathless. Disguise it. Vacuuming. Never admit it. The illusion must hold. You're always ready. Never caught off guard. Wrong number. Grave event. You duet in excessive politeness. Oh, no trouble at all. I hope you find who you're looking for. Offer dialing tips. Hang up. Exhale, a reputation for rudeness on the phone. Social death. Invitations dwindle, and the call isn't private. Everyone hears children shushed. Radio turned down, dog banished. Your end is performed for an audience. Transferring the call. Delicate relay race. One moment, please. Rush to find the person.
Take too long. Apologize twice. Lose connection. Family scandal. Retold at Thanksgiving. Today, answering the phone is a surprise often met with dread. Back then, it was ritual, responsibility. So next time you see a rotary phone in an antique store, pause. Remember when every call was a test of manners. Every wrong number a chance for grace. Every greeting a tiny, perfectly performed act on the grand stage of suburban etiquette. And finally, the unexpected visitor. Neighbor's car pulls up. Are your shoes on? Is the house clean? Are you wearing clothes? You're deep in laundry sorting trance, contemplating whether socks need pairing. Halfway through a chapter of Reader's Digest when you spot it, the glint of chrome, the pastel paint, Mrs. Allen's station wagon, slowing outside your driveway. She's not alone. Daughter in back. Mysterious pie-shaped bundle. Blood drains from your face. Time dilates. You have less than 10 seconds. Shoes. Where are they? You consider answering barefoot then. Remember last week's scandal about Mrs. Patterson's bohemian lifestyle. Living room. Sprint past the sofa. Snatch rogue magazines. A sock of unknown origin. Coffee table littered with crayons and popcorn. Swipe it all into a drawer. Pray it doesn't explode later. Vacuum cleaner stands proudly in the corner. A subtle hint you've been busy. Doorbell rings. You open it, breathless but composed. Well, hello. What a lovely surprise. As if you weren't just contemplating the philosophical implications of mismatched socks. Because in the 1950s, even chaos must look intentional and perfection. It's not a standard, it's a survival skill. You're always cleaning, not just in frantic bursts before company arrives, but constantly, relentlessly, as if order itself depends on your vigilance. When the neighbor's car pulls into view, you flip on the vacuum, not because the floor needs it, but for effect. Its gentle hum signals to the world that discipline reigns here, at least for these few precious minutes. Then there's your appearance. Are you still wearing your laundry uniform, also known as yesterday's housecoat, now sporting suspicious jam stains? Panic sets in. You throw on a fresh apron and a dash of lipstick. Nothing says domestic competence like a smear of coral hastily applied in the hallway mirror. You smooth your hair with one hand, straighten your skirt with the other, and try to project the serene calm of someone who has spent the entire afternoon preparing for this social ambush. The doorbell rings. You draw a deep breath, paste on your sunniest, delighted to see you smile, and open the door with a greeting carefully calibrated to sound casual, not breathless. Oh, what a wonderful surprise, you declare, hoping your voice doesn't betray the terror still fluttering beneath your collar. Mrs. Allen steps inside, eyes scanning the room like a drill sergeant inspecting barracks. You silently pray she doesn't notice the lone sock peeking from under the sofa or the faint ghost of burned toast still hovering in the air from breakfast. Her daughter lingers in the doorway, clutching a mystery, possibly a peace offering, possibly a test of your hospitality, or worse, your ability to produce clean forks on zero notice. Conversation becomes a blur. You offer coffee, even though the pot is empty, and the only clean mugs are chipped, mismatched, or both. You recite a silent prayer that the good sugar bowl isn't still soaking in the dishwasher, and desperately hope no one asks to use the bathroom, which you haven't checked since last Tuesday, as Mrs. Allen chatters about the upcoming bake sale. You nod enthusiastically while mentally calculating how long it will take her to notice. You haven't dusted the top of the television. Every minute feels like an audit, not just of your home, but of your children, hopefully still hidden in the linen closet. Your competence and your ability to sustain the illusion that everything is always under control. Finally, with a flurry of polite goodbyes, the visit ends. You shut the door and collapse against it in relief. You've survived the suburban rite of passage, known as the unannounced visitor and adrenaline-fueled. It's about navigating social landmines with your dignity and lipstick mostly intact. Now, consider the clothesline. Drying laundry outside isn't just practical, it's a performance. Sheets must billow like stage curtains in a summer breeze. Underwear must be hidden behind a phalanx of towels. Socks are paired with military precision. Woe betide the housewife whose unmentionables are glimpsed by the mailman. That's not an oversight, it's a social catastrophe worthy of a prayer circle. Picture a breezy Wednesday. Backyards hum with the quiet competition of laundry day. Across the fence, you hear the rhythmic snap of wooden clothespin, the rustle of cotton in the wind, and the murmured exchange of neighborhood intelligence. In the 1950s, the clothesline is your public portfolio. Forget social media. This is your real feed. Before a single sock touches the line, you assess your audience. Mrs. Parker is pruning Rose's eyes, narrowed over the fence. The mailman marches his route like a sentinel. The neighbor kids watch, grinning, hoping for a gust strong enough to send someone's bloomers into a tree. The stakes are high. The rules are unwritten but absolute. Sheets go center stage, taut and wrinkle-free. If they billow elegantly, you're a woman of taste and order. If they sag, whispers begin. Did she skip the starch? Is she losing her touch? There's nothing quite like the humiliation of a limp sheet to shatter your morning confidence. Underwear, those scandalous secrets of domestic life must never be seen in the open. Brass are shielded by pillowcases. Bloomers vanish behind double rows of bath towels. If the mailman spots even a glimpse of lace, expect polite avoidance for weeks and possibly a discreet note slipped into your mailbox recommending modesty in all things. Socks are a battlefield. They're not tossed, they're deployed. Toes pointing east, heels west, evenly spaced, perfectly matched. A single sock flapping alone. That's chaos. That's the kind of visual that sends Mrs. Parker reaching for the phone to call your mother-in-law. Towels and handkerchiefs serve as camouflage and filler used to create the illusion of abundance without suggesting you've laundered the entire block. And the weather. That's your silent adversary. You've learned to read clouds like a seasoned sailor. A sudden rainstorm means barefoot sprints across the yard, arms full of half-dry linens, praying no one's watching from a kitchen window. This ritual repeats weekly. A flawless clothesline is social currency. It tells the neighborhood you've got it all together. Even when your children are wild, your casseroles are collapsing, and your checkbook is one bounced payment from disaster. So next time you see crisp sheets dancing in the sun, remember that line is both art and anxiety, a symphony of cotton and quiet judgment. One misstep, and you're the talk of the block. One perfect display, and you're crowned queen of suburban order, at least until the wind shifts, of course. Keeping up appearances isn't about joy. It's about waging a quiet, passive-aggressive war with your neighbors. The lawn must be trimmed, roses dead-headed. Heaven help you if a dandelion dares cross the property line. In 1950s suburbia, the grass isn't just greener on the other side, it's a personal affront. The first rule of the block. You are always being watched. Mrs. Jensen, 3 doors down, peers through lace curtains with binoculars, normally reserved for birdwatching. Mr. Tompkins strolls past at dawn, hands clasped behind his back, mentally cataloging which lawns were mowed and which are flirting with anarchy. Your day begins with reconnaissance. Coffee in hand, you scan the street. The neighbors read, rivals are already out, trowels in hand, squinting at their flower beds like generals surveying a battlefield. The air smells of cut grass and competitive dread. You spot a single dandelion blooming defiantly at the edge of your walkway. A chill runs down your spine. You pluck it like you're disarming a bomb. 1 dandelion becomes 20. 20 becomes a cautionary tale whispered at bridge club. Lawn care is chess with sweat. Grass must be short, but not desperate. Mow once a week, but never on the same day as the Johnsons, lest you appear derivative. Clippings must vanish immediately. Leaving them out signals sloth. Fertilizer is acceptable, so long as it's odorless and doesn't make your lawn glow neon green. Compost, noble but only if hidden behind the garage. Flower beds are another front. Roses are dead-headed daily. Tulips stand at attention. Marigolds must never sprawl. If your peonies collapse under their own weight, you prop them up with stakes and prayer. If the hydrangeas droop, you blame the humidity and hope Mrs. Jensen doesn't notice. Front porch decor is subtly weaponized. A fresh wreath says, I have my life together. A chipped pot, that's surrender. Lawn ornaments walk a tightrope. 1 pink flamingo is whimsical. 2 is tacky. 3 means you've given up and might as well park a rusted sedan on the grass. Wind chimes are acceptable if they tinkle. Anything louder is an act of war. Then there's the silent arms race of equipment. The day Mr. Tompkins rolls out his gleaming new push mower, the whole block feels the tremor. By dinner, every hardware store for miles is sold out of upgrades. You convince your husband the old mower is unsafe, and soon you own a machine so advanced it practically critiques your neighbor's crabgrass as it passes. Watering is its own secret science. Too much, and your lawn is suspiciously lush. Too little, and it crunches like autumn leaves. The goal: just enough green to radiate envy across property lines without a water bill so high it becomes gossip at the next coffee morning. In the end, no one wins. You collapse inside, grass-stained and weary, wondering if it's worth it. But tomorrow, you'll peek through the curtains and notice Mrs. Jensen's begonias looking suspiciously perky. And so it begins again, the endless contest to prove whose yard dand, by extension, whose life is most perfectly manicured. Because in 1950s suburbia, the real growth isn't in the gardens. It's in the quiet, relentless competition that keeps you trimming, weeding, and pretending to care all to ensure your dandelions never show. Grocery shopping. It's less about groceries and more about navigating a minefield of social surveillance. It's Tuesday morning. You're armed with a starched shopping list, a sensible handbag, and a desperate hope that you won't run into Mrs. Johnson before you've washed your hair. You step into the supermarket's fluorescent glow and immediately feel the tension in the air. Every woman here is performing the same delicate ballet, pretending she's here for bread and milk. Not to be judged, the produce section is your first trial. Bananas are inspected for the perfect blush of yellow. Apples are tapped like wine bottles. Citrus is rotated and sniffed as if you're solving a citrus-based mystery. Etiquette dictates: never squeeze more than 3 avocados. Never take the last of anything. Reach for the final bunch of parsley, and you'll earn an icy glare from Mrs. Jenkins, who, as everyone knows, serves the best chicken salad in town. The canned goods aisle is a labyrinth of social risk. Generic peas, acceptable. Off-brand tomato soup, a moral lapse. Canned tuna is fine, but creamed chipped beef must be smuggled beneath a stack of respectable fruit cocktail. Your cart becomes a statement. Every item broadcasts your values, your budget, your very character, and then, inevitably, encounters begin. A PTA acquaintance, a neighbor eager to lament the playground's decay, the store manager lurking at every aisle's end, ready to judge your margarine choices. You nod politely while mentally rehearsing your cover story, bridge night, special occasion. I swear, this cake mix is for charity. The frozen food aisle offers false sanctuary. Lean in for peas, and you're trapped in a 10-minute debate about reheating techniques. The real test comes at the meat counter, where the butcher serves as both vendor and social gatekeeper. Choose a cut too expensive, and you're extravagant. Too humble, and you're cheap. If Mrs. Parker happens by, she eye your roast and sigh, as if you're running a carnivore boarding house. In the dairy aisle, every choice is a declaration. Whole milk, traditional. Skim, modern. Butter, confident. Margarine, risky. Buy both, and people wonder what kind of household you're running. Powdered milk. That's either genius or a cry for help at checkout. You stack your items with labels facing out, projecting control. Competence.com. You smile at the cashier, chat about the weather, and ignore the burning sensation of Mrs. Jensen's gaze, cataloging your every purchase. Back in the car, you replay it all. Did you smile enough? Was the boxed cake mix visible? Did anyone notice the spam? You exhale, victorious for now, because in 1950s suburbia, grocery shopping isn't errands. It's an Olympic event in social navigation, where every aisle is another chance to prove you belong. Ironing isn't a chore, it's a lifestyle. Every garment, napkin, and pillowcase must be pressed to an impossible crispness, and you must appear to enjoy it. Admit defeat, and the wrinkles win. Your tools are relics of war. The iron isn't sleek or steam-powered, it's a chrome-plated beast, heavy enough to double as a weapon against anyone who suggests wrinkle-resistant fabric will ever catch on. The ironing board unfolds with a creak, its cover scarred by past battles. The routine is sacred. Husbands' shirts, first, they must impress the boss. School uniforms, next to avoid a call from Mrs. Parker. Then your own blouses, which you'll wear for precisely 5 minutes, before swapping for an apron at the first knock on the door. Then come the napkins, handkerchiefs, on ambitious days. The top sheet because, God forbid, a guest glimpses a crease through the coverlet. Plug it in and wait for the hiss of steam, the sound that says, I am in control. The house fills with the scent of scorched cotton and quiet desperation. You press each shirt like it's a military inspection. Collar, sleeves, body. Lift, smooth, glide, press. One distraction, a phone call, a child's cry, a draft hand disaster strikes, a permanent wrinkle, a mark that may never fade, a topic for gossip by Tuesday. In this world, wrinkles aren't just sloppiness. They're evidence that civilization is unraveling. There's always the threat of inspection. A Matharina, a neighbor, the visiting pastor, all of whom expect crisp linens and Christopher cuffs. Any lapse invites helpful advice. Have you tried more starch, dear? The subtext stings. You're losing your grip. Cloth napkins are mandatory for the respectable. Each corner must be razor sharp, each fold stiff enough to slice butter. Paper napkins, reserved for picnics or moral failure. Even hanging clothes, post-ironing is choreographed. Shirts draped on hangers with military precision. One careless fold, and 30 minutes of labor vanish. Modern life offers shortcuts, sprays, permanent press, dryer settings. But in the 1950s, you're locked in eternal war with puckers, rumples, and mysterious post-folding creases. Your only allies, elbow grease, and the fantasy that somewhere, someone actually enjoys ironing. Ironing isn't duty, it's performance. You press on literally and figuratively, as smiling as you battle entropy itself. Because everyone knows the truth. The moment you let your guard down, the wrinkles win, and the fragile order of suburbia might just collapse. One creased pillowcase at a time. Hosting a dinner party requires the nerves of a spy and the grace of a diplomat. Your jokes must be harmless. Laughter, polite. Casserole, unburnt. If conversation stalls, pivot to bridge scores or the weather. Anything deeper, simply not done. It's Saturday night. You're in full battle dress, crisp dress, pearls. The table gleams silver, polished, china aligned, candles flickering with hopeful optimism. Please, no repeat of last month's ham disaster. The doorbell rings. Guests arrive in coordinated outfits, bearing wine and the faint aura of people who'd rather be in pajamas. You greet them with the same brightness you'd reserve for a tax refund or a full afternoon nap. Shoes are swapped for slippers. At the door, no scuff marks on the rug. Cocktails flow in the living room. Tiny canapes circulate. You laugh politely at Mr. Bennett's 10th retelling of his carburetor woes. Everyone has a role. The neighbor who reminisces about last winter's snowstorm. The friend just back from Europe. The husband who's told the same Christmas party story since 1953. Your job. Keep the conversational plates spinning, nodding along while sending silent SOS signals with your eyes. The meal is both culinary and emotional theater. Casseroles are unveiled like state secrets, side dishes explained with dramatic flair. If something burns or collapses, you smile serenely. Well, it's all about the company, isn't it? As if embarrassment doesn't exist. Laughter is carefully rationed, not too loud, unseemly, not too quiet, suspicious. Genuine humor is rare. What matters is the appearance of cheer, gentle chuckles punctuating every anecdote, as if life in your zip code is perfectly pleasant, and absolutely nothing of interest ever happens. Silence is the enemy. A pause of even 3 seconds feels like an eternity. You keep emergency anecdotes ready. You'll never guess what the milkman said. Or, little Bobby put his shoes in the freezer again. If all else fails, compliment someone's curtains new or old. It doesn't matter. Just keep the engine running at evening's end. As coats are donned and thanks are offered, you smile exhausted but victorious. You've survived another dinner party, navigated the minefield, kept the casserole upright, laughter calibrated. Proof that sometimes, in the 1950s, success isn't about cooking, it's about performance. And then there's the mail dot. It's not just letters. It's a minefield of social obligation. Invitations must be answered promptly. Thank you notes, handwritten, and under no circumstances may you RSVP, maybe, forget to reply. And your absence will be noted in the neighborhood ledger for generations. Each afternoon, the mailman arrives, uniform crisp, whistle cheerful, as he slides envelopes into your box. There's a thrill in opening it. Maybe a card from Aunt Marjorie, a catalog, but more likely, a cream-colored envelope. Formal script looping across the front. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett request the pleasure of your company. Your palms sweat. You've entered high-stakes territory. Rules are clear and merciless. Reply within 3 days. Promptness isn't polite's proof you're a functioning member of society. Delay, and you're labeled unreliable, unpredictable, or worst of all, thoughtless. You draft your response with trembling care. Penmanship legible, tone warm, but not effusive. Even the act of declining an invitation requires the finesse of a diplomat. A simple no is unthinkable. It must be wrapped in layers of apology, carefully phrased regret, and plausible, non-committal excuses. Regretfully, we are unable to attend due to a prior engagement. Even if that engagement is you, curled up on the sofa in pajama pants, eating cold cereal straight from the box. Failure to respond is not just rude, it's a cardinal sin. Your absence will be noted. Your motives dissected at the next PTA meeting. Your name quietly demoted on the informal guest list hierarchy. Like a fallen monarch exiled to the back rows of bridge club. Woe betide the housewife who forgets an RSVP or, worse, arrives without one. You'll be greeted at the door with a smile that never quite reaches the eyes, followed by a quiet murmur about unexpected numbers at the table. It's a scarlet letter moment, coffee mornings, and silent glances across the grocery aisle for years to come. Sometimes, the RSVP becomes a weapon. If there's someone in the neighborhood you'd rather avoid, you can send accepts with pleasure to every event except hers. A slow, silent avalanche of exclusion begins. Suspicion blooms. Whispers circulate. Did you hear? She didn't invite Marjorie to the garden tour. The experts in this quiet warfare don't shout. They don't argue. They simply delay a reply, misplace a card, or let the envelope sit unopened on the hall table for 3 days. Alliances are forged, rivalries solidified, not with words, but with ink, paper, and the strategic silence of a perfectly timed omission. It's a sport, and the stakes are higher than you'd ever admit. And then there are the invitations themselves, handwritten, of course, in perfect cursive, with the correct honorifics. Never use a ballpoint pen. Never address an envelope with anything less than your Sunday best penmanship, a sloppily written name. That's not carelessness. That's a declaration. I thought of you last week. Or, worse, I lost your address and had to ask Mrs. Jenkins. Reputation is built on ink and envelope glue. Every stroke, every fold, every stamp carries meaning. Compare this to today's world of text message invites and Facebook maybe replies. There's no charm in a digital shrug, no tension in a half-hearted emoji, no gravity in a one-word can't. There was no such thing as maybe in the 1950s. Every letter, every reply, every deliberate omission was loaded with history, hierarchy, and the unspoken rules of a neighborhood that watched, listened, and remembered. So next time you find an old box of engraved stationery, remember, these weren't just letters. They were chess moves, olive branches, silent declarations of suburban diplomacy. Proof that in the 1950s, etiquette didn't end at the mailbox. It started there. There's always pressure to bring a show-stopping dessert to every gathering. Your lemon meringue pie must strike the perfect balance, tart enough to make the palate sing, sweet enough to soothe the soul. If your crust shrinks into a soggy, shame-filled disk, you might as well pack your bags and move to a town where no one bakes. Baking in the 1950s isn't a pastime. It's a competitive sport. The kitchen becomes an arena. Every Pyrex dish, every rolling pin, every whisk is a weapon in the silent, unspoken war for neighborhood approval. You rise before dawn, nerves trembling, and begin the sacred ritual. Ingredients measured with the precision of a NASA engineer. Lemons squeezed by hand, never from a bottle. Eggs separated with the gentle touch of a surgeon. The meringue whipped until it forms peaks so stiff they could be used to threaten unruly children. Sugar is added slowly. Too fast, and the structure collapses. Too little, and the flavor falters. The filling must be bright, never sour. The crust, oh, the crust, your most vulnerable point. 1 degree too hot, 1 second too long. One careless touch of the rolling pin and it shrinks, not just shrinks, retreats into a pathetic, crumpled circle of failure. As the scent of lemon fills the house, the neighborhood awakens. Every open window is a listening post. Every passing car, a potential judge. If you're known for your baking, the pressure doubles. Expectations are not just high, they're sacred. Failure isn't personal, it's communal. Mrs. Taylor once brought a pie with a cracked meringue. Rumor has it she hasn't been invited to a bridge night since. Transporting your creation is a test of courage. You cradle the pie like a newborn, bracing against every bump, every pothole, every rogue squirrel. Anxiety doesn't end until you've crossed the threshold, placed it on the table with a nonchalance you absolutely do not feel, and prayed that the meringue still holds, the crust is golden, and no one notices the hairline crack along the edge. The judging begins before the first bite. Polite smiles mask silent calculations. Is her meringue higher than mine? Did she use fresh lemon or extract? Whose pie will vanish first? Whose will linger untouched, a silent monument to social decline? Compliments are doled out with caution, never too effusive, never too eager. You always make the best crusts, someone says. Is it praise or a warning shot? The first slice is the most nerve-wracking. Will it hold together or collapse into a gooey mess? You smile serenely as Mrs. Parker takes a bite, hoping she doesn't discover the slightly undercooked bottom or that you swapped butter foreshortening. At the last minute, relief washes over you only when the platter is empty and someone asks for the recipe. But even then, the anxiety never truly leaves. You know next time, the expectations will be higher, and should your dessert falter, should the meringue weep, the filling ooze, you accept your fate with a brave face. There's always next week, next month. A bundt cake, a cherry cobbler. In the 1950s, baking was never just about sugar and flour. It was about status, survival, the sacred quest for that one perfect lemon meringue, proof that, at least for today, you truly belong. So dust off that rolling pin, set your jaw, bake as if your social life depends on it, because, in a way, it absolutely does. School meetings are equal parts performance and warfare. You must agree with everyone. Contribute just enough to seem helpful. Never suggest anything radical, like changing the color of the gym curtains. It's 7 p.m. You sit in a folding chair that pinches somewhere deeply personal, clutching a notebook filled mostly with doodles and passive-aggressive grocery lists. Around you, other parents gather, darting like weary gazelles. A pot of tepid coffee sits on a card table, a plate of questionable cookies, the lingering scent of chalk, dust, and tension. No one is here for fun. Everyone is here because attendance is mandatory, because being seen is power, because missing a meeting is a silent surrender of influence, parental, social, and otherwise. The opening minutes are a masterclass in suburban diplomacy. The PTA president, a woman whose voice is so cheerful it borders on hostile, calls the meeting to order. She welcomes everyone, reminding them of the constructive spirit expected. Translation: don't mention the band funding scandal. Don't ask what happened to the playground slide. Everyone nods gravely, making careful eye contact as if pledging allegiance to a fragile, barely held together piece. Business begins with the reading of last meeting's minutes, a performance best described as interpretive boredom. You practice the correct ratio of nodding. Not too eager, nobody likes a tryhard. Not too indifferent, they remember. Your mind wanders. If you raise your hand, will it mean you're volunteering for something or just seeking clarification? The answer is yes. Here, participation is dangerous. Debate begins on fundraising, bake sales, car washes, raffles. There are rules. Never criticize someone's idea outright. Instead, offer a gentle, "Oh, that's so creative. I wonder if the weather will cooperate." Or, "Last time was such a big success. Maybe we should try something similar." Radical innovation is frowned upon. Remember the great curtain debacle of '53, when Mrs. Jensen suggested turquoise. She's still in social exile, forced to run the lost and found table in perpetuity. Consensus is kibbut, not too quickly, agree too fast. And people think you're hiding something. Disagree too loudly, and you're accused of stirring the pot. The safest strategy: make supportive noises. Volunteer for a task just boring enough to prove your commitment without risking real responsibility. Folding programs, counting tickets. Always look busy, never indispensable. The line between volunteer and victim is thinned. Dangerous. Personal rivalries simmer beneath the surface. The woman who always forgets her cookies for the bake sale. The dad who questions the treasurer's report every month. The clique of parents who somehow decide the school's entire winter pageant. Theme.you. Navigate these alliances with care, swapping small talk, coded compliments. Your brownies are always so moist. It's both a genuine remark and a subtle warning. Last year, your brownies were dry, and they remember. At some point, the conversation veers perilously close to actual controversy. Budget shortfalls, the new reading curriculum, why the flagpole still leans at a 17-degree angle. Instantly, everyone becomes a diplomat. Silence descends, broken only by someone suggesting a committee. Look into it. You jot a note, knowing that committee will never actually meet. When the meeting finally adjourns, you stand, stretch discreetly, and make the slow walk out, waving, exchanging pleasantries. See you next month. You chirp, as if the past hour hasn't aged you a year. You've survived the PTA meetings, delicate truths, neither victorious nor vanquished. Simply present another night in the suburban theater, another day closer to summer break when the real negotiations begin. Again. End. As you drive home, you wonder, did anyone notice your eye twitching when the gym curtains were mentioned? Probably. That's how legends are born. In the 1950s, conversation with men, especially other people's husbands, required the diplomatic subtlety of a United Nations envoy. Laugh at the right jokes, feign surprise at car advice. Never let on that you actually understand the stock market. Picture this. You're at a suburban barbecue. The sizzle of patties, smoke curling into the summer air, lemonade sweating in the sun. The men have gathered in a loose knot around the grill, discussing topics that seem suspiciously dull but are, in fact, high-stakes conversational turf. Plate in hand, navigating the tricky etiquette that governs mixed company. Every word, every gesture is a performance designed to protect egos, flatter sensibilities, and avoid a neighborhood incident that might end up as a cautionary tale at bridge club. The rules are subtle, but ironclad. First, never initiate the conversation unless you've been spoken to. Your safest move. A friendly nod, a smile, the universal opener. The weather certainly turned out nice. If they drift into lawn care or engine maintenance, you listen attentively. Sprinkle your responses with, "Oh, is that so? How interesting." Genuine interest. Optional. Plausible deniability. Non-negotiable. Laughter is part of the script. The correct response to any joke, no matter how many times you've heard it, is polite, slightly delayed laughter, ideally accompanied by a modest tilt of the head. Under no circumstances should you outlaw the men. Heaven forbid you deliver a punchline of your own. If a man tells a story about the time he put diesel in the lawnmower, you are obligated to find it funnier than the time you fixed the washing machine with nothing but a paperclip and sheer willpower. Conversation may veer into car advice at this point. You must express surprise, admiration, enough confusion to let them explain things in detail. Even if you could replace a spark plug with your eyes closed. Now is not the moment to share that information. I never would have thought to check the carburetor, you exclaim, knowing full well what a carburetor looks like, and possibly where to find one in the garage. Financial topics. A minefield if the talk turns to stocks, bonds, or the merits of saving versus spending. Your job is to look intrigued, but not too knowledgeable. Never mention the spreadsheet you keep in your purse. Certainly never let slip that you've read the Wall Street Journal more recently than anyone holding a pair of barbecue tongs. I always trust my husband with those things, you say while mentally noting you were the one who moved the family out of short-term bonds in '57, saving the Christmas budget and possibly the marriage. If by some disaster the conversation drifts toward politics or world events, proceed with extreme caution. A safe comment, "Oh, I just hope things settle down soon," followed by a gentle redirection toward local sports scores or the upcoming garden show. Any statement resembling an actual opinion can and will be used against you, preferably in the next round of block gossip. You may occasionally find yourself cornered by a man who wants to know your thoughts on home improvement. This is your cue. Compliment his tool collection. Admire the paint job on the fence. Ask for advice on something you already fixed last weekend. If you're especially daring, ask about the best brand of lawn seed, then file away the advice for later. Use in both conversation and passive-aggressive, neighborly one-upmanship. All the while, your real thoughts remain safely locked away, shielded behind a wall of bland pleasantries and agreeable nods. It's exhausting, but it's the unspoken code. One small misstep, and you might accidentally reveal you're an actual person with real opinions, capable of running a household and a conversation. Nobody's ready for that, least of all the men. So you keep your secrets, laugh at the right jokes, and when the moment is right, make your escape to the lemonade table. Knowing that the true art 1950s etiquette isn't just what you say, it's what you politely and cleverly keep to yourself. Managing your in-laws is a delicate operation. The key: appear grateful, never contradict, serve their favorite foods without admitting you used instant mashed potatoes. Survival depends on never letting them see you sweat. Let's set the scene. The doorbell rings at exactly to p.m. Not a minute early, not a minute late. You've spent the last 4 hours in a frenzy of dusting, vacuuming, and whispering desperate prayers to the gods of gravy. Your husband paces nervously. The children have been threatened into temporary silence. Even the dog has sensed the mood, retreating to a quiet corner to avoid collateral damage. The moment your in-laws cross the threshold, your home becomes a battlefield. Disguised as a living room, your mother surveys the space with the keen eye of a military inspector. She notes the placement of the doilies, shininess of the floor, the exact temperature of the iced tea. You greet her with a smile so bright it could melt linoleum. Offering compliments on her hat, her shoes, her remarkable talent for arriving just as the Jell-O salad has reached peak wobble. The first order of business: establishing authority, hers, not yours. "Oh, I would have put the serving spoons on the left," she says, before rearranging the cutlery with the delicate precision of a bomb squad technician. "Your job." Nod appreciatively. "Murder, of course. Thank you for the tip. Do not, under any circumstances, mention that you spent an hour consulting an etiquette manual." Your father-in-law settles into the armchair with a heavy sigh. Ready to offer opinions on lawn care, government spending, the superiority of his childhood dentist dinner. is the real proving ground. They have specific tastes. Pot roast. Potatoes. Not too much garlic. Absolutely no foreign spices. You serve with a steady hand, dishing up perfectly portioned helpings, answering questions about the recipe with a smile and a skillful omission. How did you get the potatoes so smooth? You mention elbow grease, not the dehydrated flakes you whisked with cold milk at 11:30 a.m. Honesty is not the best policy. Here, plausible deniability is the cornerstone of familial peace. Conversation is another obstacle course. You nod at stories you've heard a dozen times. Did I ever tell you about the time we camped in Wisconsin in '32? To still laugh politely at jokes that expired during the Truman administration. Never, ever contradict a single statement. If you're feeling daring, you may try to steer the conversation toward safe topics, whether gardening, church bazaars, anything less risky than current events, or heaven forbid your own parenting strategies. All the while, you are acutely aware that everything is being graded on a secret in-law scorecard. The children's haircuts, pattern of the curtains, even the scent of the bathroom soap. Nothing escapes notice. If your toddler spills milk, you leap into action before a single drop hits the floor, offering a napkin, a smile, as if this were all part of your well-rehearsed plan. The key: project an aura of calm competence, no matter how many small disasters unfold behind the scenes. Dessert brings a moment of truth. If your pie crust is flaky, you earn a rare nod of approval. If it's a little tough, you smile and pretend you prefer it that way. Under no circumstances do you accept help clearing the table, unless you want to risk your mother-in-law discovering the brand of dish soap you use, not the one she recommended, of course. When the visit finally ends, you wave goodbye with genuine relief. Exhale. You have survived another encounter with the occupying forces. The living room is slightly rearranged. The children are quietly shell-shocked, and the gravy boat is missing in action. But you made it through. Without breaking a sweat. At least not where anyone could see. In the secret annals of suburban warfare, that counts as victory. Serving a boxed cake is both a modern convenience and a potential scandal. If you use one, hide the evidence. If it turns out better than homemade, prepare for a suspicious investigation. From your baking peers in 1950s suburbia, baking isn't just a kitchen activity. It's a competitive sport with rules more tangled than the instructions on a box of Betty Crocker's latest yellow cake mix. The question of homemade versus boxed cake divides communities, topple friendships, keep housewives up at night, plotting their next move while pretending to read Good Housekeeping. Let's set the scene. It's a Tuesday afternoon. You've just remembered you promised a dessert for tonight's neighborhood potluck. Children to corral, laundry to fold, a pot roast on its third hour of slow surrender. The clock is ticking. You glance at the pantry. There it is. The forbidden fruit, a bright, cheerful box promising fresh, fluffy cake in minutes. The temptation is strong. The cake mix sings a siren song of ease. Just add eggs, water, oil. Stir. Bake. But beyond your kitchen, the politics of cake are anything but simple. The risk? If you make a boxed cake, and anyone finds out, you risk being gently exiled to the culinary outskirts of the neighborhood, invited to fewer gatherings, eyed suspiciously in the produce aisle, whispered about during bridge. No one says it out loud, but everyone knows. The important thing is to re-establish calm, smooth the hair, reapply lipstick, get back to your day. And while the standards may seem absurd, there's a strange comfort in these rituals. The rules are the scaffolding that keep everything upright, even when you feel like falling apart. Everyone beneath the surface is pretending, navigating breakdowns with the same precision they apply to ironing napkins or arranging roses. So should you find yourself on the brink, remember, etiquette extends even to your lowest moments. Have your private meltdown. Gather yourself. Step out with your dignity intact. After all, perfection is a myth, but surviving the demi-sea feelings and all is a quiet, noble victory. The towels, the ones that live in the guest bathroom, are starched into rectangles and possibly sprayed with the same perfume used by minor European royalty. In the 1950s, using a company towel for actual drying is a crime on par with arson. These towels exist solely to impress your mother-in-law and to absorb the gentle humidity of the air. Your hands. Wipe them on your skirt like everyone else. Just make sure no one's watching. It's a Saturday morning, and you're doing the weekly inventory. Bathroom gleaming. Soap dish aligned at a precise 90-degree angle, and on the rack, there they are, your pride and terror. 2 pristine company towels, folded so sharply you could use them to slice bread. You don't know exactly when this ritual started, but you know it will never, ever end as long as there's a remote possibility that a neighbor, friend, or critical relative might wander through your guest bathroom. The secret is in the presentation. Company towels must look untouched, almost sacred, as if they're not so much fabric as holy relics from a monastery specializing in passive aggression. They are starched until they stand at attention, arranged so the monogram faces outward, and spritzed lightly with linen, sprayed the same scent that lingers in department stores and on wealthy aunts. The ordinary hand towels are hidden, tucked behind the radiator, or stuffed into a cabinetry for actual emergencies. Spilled nail polish, a sudden burst pipe. You instruct the children, don't touch the company towels. You remind your husband, knowing full well he'll forget and dry his hands on one the day your mother-in-law drops by unannounced. The resulting gasp when she notices the faintest rumple is enough to curdle fresh milk. Oh dear, I see you've used the good towels, she say, voice sweet as cyanide. How nice. Guests, of course, are expected to know the rules without ever being told. The unspoken etiquette is that company towels are for display only, like the fruit in a wax bowl or the guest soaps shaped like seashells, lovely to look at, disastrous to use. Should an innocent visitor make the fatal mistake, the evidence is immediate. A damp spot, the scent of hand lotion clashing with the faint aroma of lavender. You notice instantly, and the rest of the evening is spent in a delicate dance of pretending not to care while mentally calculating the time needed to restarch and refold. This isn't just about towels. Of course, it's about the image, the idea that your household is so perfectly run, so abundantly blessed with textiles that you can afford to keep towels no one will ever touch. It's a performance one that every 1950s housewife plays, a subtle signal to the world that yes, you are prepared for company at a moment's notice, and no, you would never dream of letting your actual hand towels see the light of day. There are elaborate contingency plans. Some families deploy decoy less perfect set placed in front of the true company towels as a sacrificial offering to unsuspecting guests. Others rely on silent signals, a subtle repositioning of the soap, a decorative ribbon, or the strategic placement of a single, intimidatingly large seashell. Only the bravest or most oblivious will dare to disturb the perfection. If somehow the company towels are used and you are caught unprepared, damage control is essential. You rush to the bathroom, remove the compromised towels, and replace them with fresh ones before anyone can gossip. Oh, those. They were just out for washing, you'll say. Voice light as air dot, though your hands are trembling from the adrenaline rush of averted disaster. The absurdity is clear, but in the tightly choreographed ballet of 1950s etiquette, it's the details that matter. The company towels stand as both a symbol and a warning. Appearances are everything, and the difference between order and chaos is sometimes just one forbidden towel away. Carpooling sounds like teamwork, but it's actually a weekly audition for the role of most reliable parent, scheduling pickups, memorizing every child's allergies. Driving with both hands at 10 and 2 is the minimum standard. If you forget a seatbelt or show up late, brace yourself for a stern phone call and subtle exile at the next bake sale. Forget to smile at the stop sign. You may never be invited to carpool again, and good luck explaining that to your kids. It's 7:05 a.m., and you're staring down a handwritten schedule color-coded and threatening to unravel your entire week. The phone rings. Donnelly is calling to say her youngest has a sore throat. So now you'll need to shuffle booster seats and rejuggle pickup times somewhere in the background. Your own children are performing their own chaotic warm-up routine, arguing about who gets the good seat and which snack is least likely to result in car-wide mutiny. Being a carpool driver in the 1950s isn't just a favor, it's a sacred trust. You are responsible for precious cargo, 6 children, 3 lunchboxes, a clarinet, and enough permission slips to wallpaper the garage. Your station wagon is scrubbed clean inside and out. Emergency tissues live in the glove compartment. An entire box of peppermints waits for bribes or peace offerings. The journey itself is a test of nerves and etiquette. Each child must be greeted by name. Their parents' latest achievements acknowledged. Oh, I heard Janie got a star in spelling. Shoes checked for mud before they're allowed within 10 feet of your upholstery. Allergies must be memorized with the seriousness of medical school finals. Johnny can't have peanuts. Susie's sensitive to citrus. And Timmy breaks out in hives at the mere mention of raisins. The lunchbox exchange is a silent ballet, and woe betide the mother who forgets that today is hot dog day in the cafeteria. Your hands grip the steering wheel at exactly 10 and 2, knuckles white with the strain of keeping order in a moving madhouse. Small talk is required, but must remain strictly neutral. Favorite school subjects. Which teacher is nice but strict? Who has the best collection of baseball cards? Anything more personal or less appropriate and you risk scandal. A phone call and the distinct possibility of being replaced in next week's rotation. Timeliness is the true measure of your worth. Arriving even a minute late sets off a domino effect of anxiety. Mothers, waiting at the curb, tap their watches and make notes. Children, look at you with a blend of disappointment and existential dread if they're tardy. The shame will echo for generations. Early arrivals, however, are just as fraught. You must never look too eager, lest you seem desperate for approval or, worse, that you have nothing better to do than circle the block in your sensible sedan. The return trip is its own challenge. Backpacks multiply. Snack wrappers migrate under seats. The children are wild with post-school energy. A minor squabble breaks out over a trading card. Mediate with the wisdom of Solomon while navigating the world's slowest left turn as Mrs. Jensen waves you past her hydrangeas with imperial dignity. When the last child is safely delivered, you breathe a sigh of relief. Check the back seat for forgotten mittens. Mentally rehearsed tomorrow's schedule. If you did everything right, no accidents, no tears, no late arrivals, you might earn a whispered compliment at next week's coffee morning. A subtle nod of approval that says you've passed the carpool gauntlet for another cycle, but let your standards slip. Late for pickup. Miss a turn. Let someone forget their clarinet, and the consequences are swift and social. Your name quietly drops from the rotation. Your kids ask why the Johnsons don't ride with you anymore, and you find yourself inexplicably in charge of cupcakes for the spring fundraiser. Carpooling in the 1950s. Equal parts logistics, politics, and high-stakes etiquette. Buckle up, smile at every stop sign, and remember, the true road to social acceptance is always paved with good intentions. At least 3 emergency snacks every week. You're expected to present yourself at the local beauty parlor like a gladiator, entering the arena only with more hairspray and fewer lions. The real game isn't getting your curls just right, it's surviving the onslaught of gossip. Fail to act shocked at the latest scandal, and you're marked as suspiciously indifferent. Share too much, and you become this week's main course in the end. It's less about errand, more about escaping with your secrets and your dignity. Let's set the scene. It's Friday morning, and the air is thick with anticipation and acquaintance. The beauty parlor is already humming with the low buzz of gossip, the click-clack of curlers, and the sharp, anticipatory snap of a fresh vinyl cape. Rows of hair dryers line the walls like futuristic sentinels, each one roaring with the secrets of a dozen households. There is the faint, ever-present scent of perm solution and the underlying electric tension of unsaid truths. You take your place in the faded mint green chair, clutching your magazine not to read, but as a shield against stray glances. Your stylist, Marge, approaches with a comb and a conspiratorial wink. She's heard everything, knows everyone, and could topple the local social order with a single well-placed whisper. I really shouldn't say.